first exposure to anime or voice acting, and what made you pursue it as a career?
I think my first exposure was Sailor Moon, and Sonic Toei, because Blockbuster used to be a thing. And whenever I hang out with my dad, we would go to Blockbuster and he would have me pick out, whatever I wanted to watch. And I distinctly remember picking those two things every single time. And I don't know how my child brain knew that those were what those were. Like, Sonic, I understand. I was a kid. Like, Sonic's really recognizable. But Sailor Moon, I don't understand. I don't understand how I was able to pick that up so consistently. But I think that's my first, exposure to anime in general. I think the first time I, watched anime and was aware it was anime was probably, Pokemon and Dragon Ball. One of those. But yeah, what was the second part of that question?
What made you pursue it as a career?
I think anime helped because it connected with me so emotionally. When I discovered that I wanted to act, I wanted to leave the same impression upon others as anime left upon me. My first ever voiceover job was Benton Alien Force, and Yuri Lowenthal played Ben. But he also told me he played Sasuke. So I was like, oh, you're in anime too? So every time I would play a game or watch new anime, I would be able to spot his voice. And because I knew that he was a voice actor who was in Ben 10 and was also in anime, I was like, I want to do that too. Once I discovered how emotionally poignant anime was in the acting realm.
Thank you, Zeno.
Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned Pokemon in some of your early influences, and so now you've gotten to contribute to that franchise. So how did that feel to come full circle?
Pretty crazy. There's certain things that you like conceptually, but you never think you'll be a part of. I think as an actor, and Dragon Ball and Pokemon were two of those things. Right now, it's these things are cool, but they're legacy things that are really far away from me. And having contributed to the Pokemon franchise in any way, notwithstanding being Ash's last, at least for the moment, traveling companion, it's pretty crazy. And I remember this was 20, right before lockdown, we did a couple episodes of Pokemon, and I was like, wow, I'm really in this dub. I didn't think I would be here playing this character. And then I'm blessed and fortunate enough to be in Horizons as well as a Pokemon this time.
Yeah.
So it's just been an incredible blessing. I'm so fortunate. Yes. I saw your hand first.
Yeah. In that same topic, you've now worked with the company who put together Hitman Reborn, and it's been 20 years now since it's been out. Mm-hmm. How does it feel to be one of the primary characters bringing it back to life?
I attribute that all to not just Discotheque, who was willing to help bring it to a platform, but to Coach of Sound, who through their sheer passion and love for this show, made it an excellent and compelling pitch for the show. And I auditioned and was fortunate enough to be a part of it. And I have a little history in playing characters from older shows. So with Kuroko's Basketball, which was a 10-year-old show, by the time the Netflix dub came around, it kind of felt like the same thing. But I really truly attribute 98% of that to Coach of Sound just being really, really passionate about not just wanting a dub for Hitman Reborn for the fans of the show and for the franchise itself, but for putting together such an incredible cast and being fortunate, and me being fortunate enough to be a part of that. And it's really cool. I just get to act with my friends, which is always the best, So I think we put together something really, really special and really, really fun, and I hope everybody goes to support it.
So continuing on in terms of roles, how does taking on a role in an iconic franchise. We already talked about Pokemon, but you're also in My Hero Academia, Attack on Titan, even did some for Young Justice even. How does that affect the approach that you make when it comes to making the choices to play that role?
I think a lot of the time I try to do my best to just like, in a sense, I know the thing is iconic, and it always drives me to be like, I have to give this more than what I have to match up to the legacy of whatever this thing is, right? So if it's Attack on Titan, if it's Young Justice, I'm always like, like Young Justice, for example, I'm sitting next to Nolan North and Troy Baker and Jason McCartney in the same room. It's like I have to step up to the plate, so to speak. Like I have to sort of not compete, but I have to like match these giants, who are like masters of their career, at the top of their game, who are what I want to be in my personal career. So like the best thing I could do is like honor like the acting of the moment of the character, of whatever I'm in, and try to make that as compelling and as believable and as honest as I can be, as I can be. So it always feels like a lot of pressure, but it's a challenge I'm excited to take on, because it lets me know like I can stand with like these legends, hopefully.
So, speaking of your work with My Hero Academia, what's your thoughts about the manga ending?
Man, end of an era. Like, there's certain things where you're like, that thing's gonna go on forever. But I remember like when we were getting into this last like arc, people were like, oh, he has 10 years worth of stuff planned after this. And I was like, really? Because what do you do after this? What would you do after this? So I think, endings are important, and how you end something is equally as important as the legacy it is and how you begin something. And it allows a creator to move on to something else, and create something. As creatives, I'm sure there's always a desire to like make more or make something different once you've been creating something for so long. Like the Scott Pilgrim creator and the Adventures of Tintin. So I think it's a bittersweet thing that it's over. I humorously and very jokingly, I'm like, my job security, but I think it's a good thing that it's ending, because I think that means Horikoshi Sensei can go on and make something else, or rest,
Yeah, right.
or rest after leaving us with arguably one of the biggest, most influential anime to come out within the past decade. And you guys, same time. I'm sorry, I couldn't see who did.
Going back to the My Hero Academia, can you share a favorite Hawks moment in the series, and can you share why?
I think my favorite Hawks moment, acting wise, was his like backstory episode. I got to play like a lot of like different layers of Hawks, like his like with his like damaged voice, and like I got to like explore his backstory. So I got to be in his regular voice when he was narrating. It was just cool. Like there were so many layers of Hawks that I got to explore and really sink my teeth into. But I think my favorite Hawks character moment is his him trying to save Lady Nagant. He has this he never usually gets loud either. He never like gets too loud unless it's like in combat. But he very passionately tries to like reach out to Lady Nagant and tell her like, just because like bad things happened to her and she was used by the Hero Society, like it's still her life and she's still a hero, and not to throw her life away. And I actually blew my voice out on that one. And I just think that's a great. And then she asks him why, and he says because he's optimistic. He's just an optimistic guy, and I think that's so emblematic to his character, and it's something that I really admire. So it really brings it all home for me with Hawks, like that moment for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
So speaking of like doing Hawks, reviving shows, writing, how do you keep up this energy, and how do you avoid creative burnout?
I don't avoid creative burnout. That is the thing. But I think I often, not to get too existential, which I do all the time, but I often think about what I want to do and the impact I want to leave, and I sort of contribute it to when Donald Glover left Community. He was like, I just didn't want to be known as the guy that was in Community. Like, I don't want to die and be known as like, what if I died tomorrow? Like, what impact do I leave on the world? And he was like, I didn't want my impact to be that one guy that was in Community. And sort of I feel the same. Like, I don't want to like die one day and my impact be that guy that did that one show that one time, you know, as talented as he was, or however people felt about him, you know, I don't know. That guy sucked. I don't know, you know, like DEI hire, you know, like I don't know. But I just personally felt like, and I always feel like, I think that's the motivating drive, is like, I look at like the world and what I want in it, and I try to make that. So if it's like writing, or if it, you know, it's like, man, I would love to write something and it be on somewhere. And so I just like try to find an avenue to make sure that happens. Just like with anime, it's like, oh, I want to be in anime. So it took a lot of like research and like taking classes and like, you know, making demos and emailing casting directors and then emailing them again if they didn't answer, and then emailing them again if they didn't answer in another 2 months. Just like setting my sights on like a specific thing I want in the world, not even just for myself, just like in the world. Like, I want this type of story in the world, so I want to make it, you know. I think this thing should be in the world, so I want to do it, you know. And I think that's how I sort of avoid, I don't know if I avoid creative burnout, but it definitely keeps me going. I definitely go, like, it's bad. I don't want to suggest anyone do this, but sometimes I put myself on timelines, you know. I go like, oh, what if I die tomorrow? I gotta do this now. What if I don't have as much. I always try to tell myself I have time, but I don't have as much time as I think I have. And I can't operate as if I have all the time in the world, because I don't.
So for my notes, I'm putting down an existential dread.
Right, you know, yeah, existential dread. These are big capital letters.
And a single Celsius.
Right, yeah. It used to be Yoruba. I'm trying to be better. And I really am just I'm passionate about creating, and I'm passionate about like just like cool stuff, I think. And I think this is, I'm starting to ramble, but I think like that's always my driving force, is like, I just want to, me and my friend have this thing we say, which is like, go to the grave empty, which is like, do everything we can while we can. So that way you have like no regrets when you're gone, you know? So that's my driving force.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
So, what are some of the differences between working on an anime such as Mashal and an American anime, or an American project rather, like Harley Quinn?
Oh, because they're both kind of humorous, right?
Yes.
Because they're both like really comedy based. It's so interesting, because I think like Japanese humor and American humor are like kind of different in a way. They're like similar, and they can be the same. They can overlap, but I think sometimes they're different too. I think like with Mashal, especially like my character, he's not the most humorous like in the show. Like, you know, like it really is like there's like a one over the top sort of thing, and that like spreads out into this world of grounded people. And I think Harley Quinn, everyone's kind of crazy, you know, like everyone kind of has a thing, you know. Yeah. And what I loved about working on Harley Quinn is they really let me kind of have some fun. Like I definitely took a lot of liberties, and they definitely let me take a lot of liberties. I was actually really surprised when I got that email. Just by the way, like I was like, what? I booked this thing? Because you know, I thought it was just gonna go to some celebrity. Like when I was auditioning, I was like, there's no way they're gonna cast me. But it was really cool, and they're really cool, really fun team. They like prioritize humor. And like women led, like my director was a woman. It was super cool. But Mashal is like, I have to stay, like Flash was like kind of elevated Flash, right? but with Mashal, I had to stay sort of kind of still grounded, you know. And my grounded would make Mashal's humor, would heighten Mashal's humor, you know. It's like, how do I best position myself to make the whole thing funnier?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you've kind of touched on a couple of these characters, but how do you find yourself in a different creative mindset when you're voicing a legacy character like somebody from Young Justice or Harley versus a more original character?
Yeah, that's really legacy characters. You can go one of two ways. You can either like sort of adapt mannerisms or adapt establishing performances, which I think I do in anime as well. But there's more in anime. There's more room to sort of like do your own thing, right? You don't necessarily have to follow the J if you don't want to, the original. But I think it's the same thing with like legacy Western properties too. But I think like with Cyborg, for example, I was like, this in my head is Kari Payton. How do I like perform this in a way that isn't a pale imitation of Kari Payton? You know, like how it's like very hard for an actor to do a take on the Joker that's not Mark Hamill, influenced by Mark Hamill's Joker, right? It's almost impossible, right? So it's like, how do I like take what I know as the identity of this character and sort of do my own spin on it? And I think that's kind of what it was with Cyborg. Like, it was like, I know this is all Kari Payton. How can I infuse sort of his energy and his take on the character, because that is the defining like pop culture traits, and like do my kind of my own thing. And with original characters, it's like sort of I'm just gonna do my own thing kind of in a way. It's how you are the establishing voice. You are the establishing sort of drive of this character, and then everything that follows is going to be an imitation of that. You know, like Sean Schemmel's Goku is essentially Sean Schemmel doing his own thing, and then every sort of, if anybody were to voice Goku after that, there's no way it's not going to have a little bit of like whatever Sean Schemmel's influence on Goku is. You know.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have I talked too much? Have I rambled?
Actually, I wanted to bring up a series that hasn't been talked about yet because it's something that I liked. Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead. So, how did you get to that role, and how much of the series did you research before taking on that role? Because that's a fun role.
It's so fun. I auditioned for it, just like most things. I'm unfortunately not big enough to not have to audition for things, which is fine. And auditioned for it, and I was very surprised that the casting director, Mommy, emailed me and told me that I booked it. I was really, really pleasantly shocked. And it ended up being a big blessing. We were talking about creative burnout earlier, and I was in a big creative burnout place at that time. Or maybe it was just like general like work burnout. And it was really refreshing because so was Akira, you know, and like it was really cool, like playing a character which is like a reflection of sort of like work culture and burnout culture and like living your life, also with the backdrop of the zombie apocalypse. Once I booked the character, I immediately downloaded as many chapters of the novel. I have Viz, like the app and the Shonen Jump app, but I think Zom is Viz specifically. So I just started reading as much as I can before we started recording. So like that was how I prepped. I just like read the manga and like, you know, like I had a different take of Akira from my audition, and then I read the manga and I was like, oh, he needs to sound like this. And so when we did the first trailer, I was like, hey, is it okay if I do something a little different than what I auditioned with? And I think that's what sort of established the Akira voice that we know and love. Hopefully love.
It's great.
Yeah.
Outside of voice acting, what are your other hobbies or interests?
God, do I have hobbies and interests? I'm a big gamer. I love games. I love gaming. I love gaming culture. And I've been discovering recently that like gaming really connects me to like my inner child. So like Like if I'm ever like down or sad, like I'll go to a video game store and I'll like, especially if they have like a lot of retro stuff, a lot of like, and like I'll be like, wow, this is so cool. Like look at this, and like look at how far this game came, and you know, and just like I watch a lot of like, you know, like Did You Know Gaming, and like there's like 2-hour long like Did You Know Gaming fact breakdowns and like Boundary Break and like that kind of stuff. I'm getting really deep into like creating and producing and writing, so I'm like producing a couple of original projects. I'm like writing a manga, and like yeah, I'm just like really into like creating right now. I just really love like what that is, and that's me also trying to like find stuff I like outside of acting, because I'm just so passionate about like my art and like what I do. But I do want to find an identity outside of that as well.
What do you feel the most difficult role was to fill?
I think my most difficult role was DJ in Street Fighter 6. I was really worried about the Jamaican accent. And at some point I had to just sort of like let it go and have fun. But I think like there's a lot of combination of things that was really challenging. You know, like one, I didn't expect to book DJ. So like I was balancing like his accent with, they like wanted him to be like really upbeat and really happy and like kind of always talking with a smile. So there was like that aspect of the performance I had to keep in mind in tandem with the accent, and then my own personal like work ethic. I was like, he's like this big buff guy and he has to sound believable. Like I wanted it to sound like it was believable that my voice could come out of like, does this sound like, you know, like does this sound like a big buff Jamaican man? No, you know. So it was like, how do I do that? You know, how do I combine all those elements in one and make sure like the accent is at least as believable as possible. Right, like as possible. I'm sorry, and it was just like I put a lot of pressure on myself, like to do that. Like in between takes, I was like listening to like, you know, like YouTube video tutorials, and like I was always practicing, and I just think like the added mental pressure I put on myself, as well as like the challenges of the character itself. However, I think it went well. You know, I think it went well. Yes.
So I asked Ms. Legba the same question. What, like, creature or non-human character, you know, has been the most fun to voice? She said she wanted to be a chicken at some point. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll have to top that. I'll give you more context. She did say she likes doing dolphin noises and narwhal noises, and she was a cat girl. So any of those.
I worked on Crash Bandicoot, and alongside playing Downer Ika, I also got to play a couple of the creatures. It was my first time doing creature work, and I was just like literally making things up as I went. Like I had never done creature work before, and I was not confident in it at all. So I was literally just like, how do I make that sound? I'll go for it. But I ended up playing like this slime blob thing, which honestly I had a lot of fun with. I don't even remember how I did it. It was incredibly challenging. I think it was like a lot of pulling at my throat and going, you know, like, and I was like, that's cool. That's something I've never done before. Just experimenting with like on the fly, like, how do I do that? I never thought of myself as like a really strong creature actor, but that was a cool sort of experiment in what I think I could do. I don't know if like, I find it fascinating like that there are actors who like love playing creatures. I think that's so cool because it requires. The second hardest thing I've ever done is play a Pokemon. I kid you not. It's the hardest thing in the world. Like the first season of Horizons was like so challenging as an actor. I left every session like, you idiot, I don't know how to play a freaking Pokemon. You've been watching this since you were 10, you know? Because you have to like be specific, like the amount of specificity required and the limited amount of things you have to enact that specificity. I respect creature actors so much.
Especially if you're a Pokemon that's from like the first generation and has been around, and
Right.
you have so many voice actors beforehand doing
Right.
it. You have to live up to that.
To
so you can
that
understand.
standard, right? It's like crazy. I can't imagine like anyone but like Inoue like doing Pikachu, you know. And like I listen to her like all the time, and I'm like, wow. Like now that I played a Pokemon, I'm like incredible. Like at first, when you're a kid, you're like, this is just Pikachu, right? But when you're an actor, you're like, wow, how specific. That's so incredible. How did she do that? You know, I learn every episode. So yeah. One day I'll get to play a Quilava, so that's my answer. One day I'll get to play a Quilava, or like a Tyrogue. I just want to be a cool Pokemon, you know. I mean, Fuecoco's cool, but I want to be another one. I'm being greedy. I want to be another one, like Tyrogue or Hitmontop.
Thank you.
Is there anything maybe that we have not covered today that you want your fans to know about that's maybe coming out or that you can talk about?
Persona 3 Reload The Answer DLC comes out really soon. And if you love Persona 3 and you've played The Answer before in Fez, I think you'll really like The Answer here. Other than that, I don't know. I think so. I'm making a manga. It's called Memento Mori, and hopefully it'll come out. Hopefully, it'll come out next year, early next year, if all goes well. Prayers up. It might not go well, but if all goes well, it'll be out soon. I think that's it. Everyone done? Be sure? You seem like you have one more.
Okay, yeah. I have to look at my list. So, what advice would you give your past self? And when you first started voice acting, knowing what you know now?
Stop arguing on Twitter.
That's my favorite pastime.
First one. It used to be mine too, until I decided to prioritize myself. I think take more risks, like take way more risks way earlier. I think like all these creative things that I'm doing now, like all the things that I want to do in the future, I think I'd be a little more head on if I like dedicated myself to it more and took more risks at that point in time. If I didn't wait for permission for it to be okay to bet on myself, or trust myself, or do that thing, or let circumstances or something stop me from doing that thing. Take more risks more often earlier. Don't wait until like you don't have a choice anymore, right? Like I hit a point where I was like, screw it, I have nothing else to lose. I'm gonna do everything I want to do now. Like do everything you want to do before getting to that point. You know, and I would tell them to love himself more, and God, be easier on yourself. You know, you have more time. Not as much time as you think, but you do have, but enough. You know, you might not have as much time as you think, but you always do have enough time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, by the way. But like, can you give us your social media handles and any upcoming projects that you're super excited about?
Yeah, I'm at Childish Gamzino everywhere. And upcoming, of course, like I said, Persona, The Answer, is coming out next month. And is that it that I can say? I think that's all I can say. What else am I doing? Pokemon Horizons is out everywhere. The Fuecoco has a Build-A-Bear now. And you press the arm, the voice comes out. So that's cool.
Is it yours?
Huh? It's mine. Yeah, it's me. So there's that. Reborn, Hitman Reborn. That's coming out soon. Please, everyone, go buy it, because maybe if it sells enough, we can maybe dub a season. Potentially. It's not official. No official sources said that to me, but we're hoping. So, like, I mean, if like 1 billion people buy it and they make $1 billion, that's enough to fund a season. So, you know, maybe we can convince them. And I think that's it for now. I'll remember when I leave. I'll be like, I should have talked about this.
Thank you, Zeno.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As from Magic, we definitely appreciate you coming back here.
I appreciate having you back.
Hope to see you again, and we'll go ahead and end it here.
Cool.